This is the incredible story of a city built on pure ambition, a city that willed itself into existence against all odds. We're talking about a place that went from a dusty little pueblo in a sun-baked basin to a sprawling global megalopolis. This is the improbable rise of Los Angeles.
So how in the world did this happen? Well, to really get it, you got to look at 5 key transformations. We're going to start at the very beginning, with the pueblo. Then we'll see how the railroad changed everything. Dive into the epic hunt for water and oil, watch the birth of the Hollywood dream machine, and finally, look at the freeways that truly shaped the city we know today.
All right, so let's start at the very beginning. And I mean way before the freeways, before the movie cameras, before any of that. This land was home to sophisticated indigenous cultures and later Spanish missionaries, who laid the literal groundwork for what would become a city.
And this timeline, wow, it just lays it all out, right? You can see these incredible layers of history. We're talking thousands of years, from the ancient Chumash people to the first European contact, then through Spanish and Mexican rule, right up until the moment it officially becomes part of the United States.
And here is maybe the most crucial thing to understand about LA from day one. Its survival was always an engineering problem. The Zanja Madre, or Mother Ditch, wasn't just some canal. It was the first, really audacious attempt to bring water where it didn't naturally flow. A theme that is going to repeat itself over and over again.
Okay, so the city is established, but it's kind of stuck in the middle of nowhere. That all changes in our next chapter. This is how technology, in the form of the Iron Horse, completely shattered LA's isolation and kicked off its first massive population boom.
I mean, this was the absolute game changer. The railroad didn't just connect LA, it basically set the city on fire. There was this insane fare war between the rail companies, and at one point, a ticket from the Midwest dropped to as low as $1. Can you imagine? Suddenly, this flood of people poured in, all chasing that dream of California sunshine. The city was never going to be the same.
And to really wrap your head around the scale of that boom, just think about this for a second. This huge metropolis, now drawing in thousands and thousands of people by train, it all started with just 11 families. That's it. They were the ones who laid out the very first streets, planting the seeds for the massive city that was now finally starting to explode.
So the city is growing like crazy, but it has 3 massive problems. 3 things it desperately needs to become a real empire, but has almost none of. A world-class port, its own source of wealth, and most importantly, water. A lot more water.
So that brings us to the big question. It's really the question that defined early LA. How on earth do you build a giant city in the middle of a desert? Without a radical solution, the whole dream was just going to dry up and blow away.
The solution they came up with was, well, it was completely audacious, just staggering. They decided they were going to build a man-made river, a concrete channel stretching 233 miles over mountains and across deserts, engineered so perfectly that gravity alone would do all the work. It was, no joke, one of the boldest projects in American history.
And when it was all done, the chief engineer, a guy named William Mulholland, stood before the crowd as the water rushed into the valley, and all he said was 5 simple, famous words. There it is, take it. Just like that. He had literally delivered the city's future.
So the water problem was solved, which was huge. But where did the money to fund all this ambition come from? Well, turns out there was another liquid treasure right under their feet. In 1892, they struck black gold, and pretty soon the whole landscape was covered in a literal forest of oil derricks. That oil money funded a huge part of the city's explosive growth. And speaking of money and power, this was a straight-up showdown for the city's future. You had the super powerful Southern Pacific Railroad, who wanted to build its own private port, basically create a monopoly. But the city of LA fought back, hard. They won the right to build their own public port at San Pedro, making sure they controlled their own gateway to the world. Okay, check this out. They've got the people, they've got the water, they've got the money, and they've got their port. Now Los Angeles starts building something you can't touch, but that might be even more powerful. An idea, a global brand, really. They start building the Dream Factory.
But this constant reinvention, it often came at a human cost. And the story of Chinatown is a perfect and pretty tough example. You had this vibrant, flourishing community right near the city's core, and then boom, It's completely demolished to build a train station. But the community persevered, rebuilding nearby in an incredible story of resilience.
You know, as a city gets more confident, it develops its own look, its own style. And LA's style was, well, it was perfectly LA. This California churriguerasque was basically taking its Spanish roots and cranking the drama up to 11, Hollywood style. It was ornate, theatrical, and completely over the top.
And if you want to see what I'm talking about, look no further. I mean, just check out the incredible, intricate detail on this church. This isn't just a building, it's pure theater. This was LA shouting from the rooftops, "Look at us, we've arrived, and we're not afraid to be fabulous."
You know, it's kind of funny, isn't it? One of the most famous symbols in the entire world started out as a billboard for a housing development called Hollywoodland. Just a temporary ad. It's the perfect LA story, really. Part business, part total accident, and now it's a global icon.
All right, we're heading into the modern era now. And this last big transformation is probably the one that defines the LA you think of today more than anything else. The car. And, of course, the freeways.
And what they built was, honestly, another engineering marvel. These massive concrete rivers, over 500 miles of them, were just carved into the landscape. They connected everything and really created that classic Southern California lifestyle of suburbs and commuting that we see in movies and TV shows.
But we have to be really clear here. That progress, that convenience, it came at a huge, huge human cost. To make way for these freeways, entire neighborhoods were just wiped off the map. We're talking about an estimated 250,000 people forced from their homes. And these were often historic communities, communities of color, that were just torn right into.
But through everything, and I mean everything, from the aerospace boom to devastating riots and earthquakes, Los Angeles has always found a way to pick itself back up. It's become this incredibly complex, diverse, global city that is always reinventing itself.
So, where does that leave us? This city, born in a desert, built against all odds, it just keeps evolving. It's facing a whole new set of challenges today: climate, housing, identity. So the real question is, for a place that's an expert at writing its own story, what on earth will its next chapter be?